Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about variables. And so I've created a class and I have my main method. Remember, all our code has to go in the main method at this point. And so I know I have a workable program. I don't have any X's on the left side, so I'm good. I could run this program. I wouldn't do anything yet. So when we talk about variables, there's really two distinct processes that we need to talk about. And they are two separate processes, but we'll show how after we're done looking at them individually, how you can kind of combine them into one statement, but it's still two processes. So the first process we would say is declaring the variable. And this is literally creating a space in memory for the variable. Now, I'm going to create all the different types of variables that right now I'm going to hold you responsible for. And so we have first type of variable, which is a number, and it's an integer, and so I'll just call it num1. And so I'll make a comment here. I'll comment all over the place in this thing. This is an integer value. So you can't have any decimals in that. It's simply an integer, but it can be positive or negative or zero. Our next type of variable would be what we would call a double. This is also a number, so I'll call it num2. And this is a decimal number, we'll just say. Be a good way to remember it. Something with a decimal. And then my next type of variable is what we would call Boolean. And so, I'll call this variable done. A Boolean is a variable that literally holds only true or false. That's the only two values it can have. Then my fourth type of variable here that we have is we'll call a char, a character. So maybe a letter might be a good name for it. So holds a single character. All right. Now there's one more type we're going to actually kind of lump in with these other four, but it's slightly different, and it's a string. And we'll talk a little bit about it in 1 second here. And so a string is basically a series of characters. Think word, sentence, etc. So now the first four types that I gave you, int, double, boolean, char, are all what we call primitives. And you can tell the primitives, well, first of all, it recognized clearly the words int, double, boolean, char. Those are reserved words. They kind of turn bold in this maroon color. And notice they all started with a lowercase letter. Primitives are something very basic. Matter of fact, you could probably identify that all four of these things really can be stored relatively easily with numbers, and we know computers, store everything as numbers, binary, and so ints can be stored really easily. Doubles are a little bit tougher, but we can certainly store a number that way. A Boolean that holds true or false could really be stored as a 0 or 1, and then a character actually is a number at the heart of it, and it's the ASCII code, I believe, for each of the characters. Now, this fifth type, the string, is a little bit different. This is actually something quite a bit more complicated. And so you notice the capital letter. Now, remember, by convention, we already have been talking a little bit about things with capital letters, and those are classes. So string is actually a predefined class that you get kind of as part of Java. It's installed by default, and we can use that class, and we'll talk much more about that as we go. But those are our variable types, and so when I declare them, I give its type first, so int, double, boolean, char, string, and then I give the variable a name, an identifier, and it starts with lowercase, and we use camel case. Also, if we can't have spaces, so we'd use camel cases to throw two words together if you need to make, an identifier that might have multiple words. All right, so you can see I have some exclamation points here on the left, and basically it's telling me that really I haven't given any values to these variables. I haven't really even used them much. But we're going to come down here, and initialize really means to give it an initial value. Now, the same way we're going to initialize it, you can change its value later and keep changing it over and over. But I want to keep these two separately, declaring and initializing, because one of the things, very key statement here, is that you should only declare a variable once, because remember, that's creating it in memory. Once it's created, you don't have to ever create it again. If you do, it really literally overwrites the whole thing, and it's very inefficient. So you create it once, and then you could constantly store different things in it once it's created. And the idea of storing something in that variable is what we would say is initialize. And so it's literally putting a value in it. So I would say num1 gets, and I can give it whatever value I want. Remember, this is an integer value here. So just say 5 or something like that. And each of these are complete lines of code. So you can see that I'm ending all of them with semicolons. And so num2, remember, is a double, so it can hold a decimal point. So maybe 2.7 or something like that. Done, remember, was Boolean, so it can only hold true or false. So we'll assign it true, just to give it some value. A char, remember, is a character. Oh, that's not what I want to type in there, sorry. Letter, it's a character. So what I'm going to put into it now, here's the thing, the first time you got to be very careful with these types, because, for example, if I just say, okay, I want to store the letter A in it, this isn't going to work, because, Java, the person that wrote Java, very smart, but it's only a computer. It's only going to do what you tell it, and so it would not know that and be able to distinguish the difference between the letter A versus another variable called A that perhaps you want to try to store in a letter. So what you have to do is you have to tell it, okay, this really is a character. And so to identify a character, you put it in single quotes or apostrophes. And that would actually identify that that is special. That's not a variable A, that's actually a character A. And then for my name, very similarly, where you have a way to distinguish it, so it doesn't think I have some kind of variable called Van Arnhem. And now a string, we put in double quotes, so between quotation marks. And you can see that Java's happy with that. It identifies the quotes and so forth, and we're not getting any error. So now I've actually created these four things. I've initialized them, and we'll come down here and maybe print them out just so we actually use them and can kind of see them. So I'll put num1 here. Maybe I'll go ahead and copy this line. A couple more times. We've got 5 types here I'm going to use. So we'll put number 2 in here. We'll put done here. We'll go ahead and make this one letter. There we go. Letter. And then this last one I can call name. And then I'll go ahead and run my program. And you can see it gave all those values, and I've actually printed them all out. And the thing is, again, I shouldn't ever create the variable again. Matter of fact, Eclipse might help me out. If I came down here and I forgot I had made a variable called num1 and I tried to go int num1, again, notice it's giving me an x here, and it's saying I have a duplicate variable. I'm trying to create it twice. That's not really a good idea. But I could come down here and say, okay, maybe I want to change the value of num1. So I'd say num1 gets -2, and now it's happy again. I can reassign it as many times as I want, but I should only make it once. All right, so that's the basic of variables, creating variables. There are different types, storing things in variables. Now, these two kind of operations, this creating the variable and initializing the variable, I actually can do it in one line. So an alternative to what I have up here for creating num1 and then in a separate line giving a value, I can combine those and I can say int and I'll erase the ones up above because it's going to yell at me for duplicate names. Int num1 gets 5. So we'll get rid of this line where we assign num1. And I'll get rid of this line here where I declared it. And so notice no problems. It'll run just as before. Now I'm just creating it and initializing it all in the same step. Now, if I want to change this value, I'm going to just, again, like I did before, just reassign it, but not recreate it. I don't want to ever put that int in front of it again. Once I've put the type in front of it, that's the actual creation step. I should never do that again. Now it's just reassigning. And so we tend to use this kind of combo of declare and initialize. We tend to do this kind of at the beginning of our program because it's nice and quick and easy. I can just declare them, initialize them right at the beginning, and then later on, if we need to change them, we'll change them. So that should take us care of the first video. Be very careful because Java is strongly typed, so we'll talk a little bit more about it in class. But for example, I can't put a string in something that has typed character. I can't put a double into an int kind of naturally. There's ways around it that we'll talk about down the road. But that's not something I can just do naturally. So hopefully you find that helpful, and watch the next video when you have time.